Hey, today on Time We Discuss, we have Natalie McCulley here. Natalie, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Natalie, you are both a certified career coach and an executive coach. So, we're going to jump right into this. What is the difference between those two, and how do they work with what you're doing?
Yeah, so thanks for asking. A certified career coach it's a little bit more general. I help clients find new careers. So I help them with the job search process, the resume writing, all of that. And I'm trained with executive coaching. So I tend to work with clients who are further along in their career at either at the C-suite level or looking to get there.
So, when you talk about resume writing, is that a skill that you do yourself, or do you like outsource, for lack of better words, to a resume writer? What does that typically look like for you?
No, that is me. That's part of the career coach training. It's me. I can't say it's my absolute favorite part of the job. I don't think if anybody's favorite part of the job is resume writing, like I've got a few questions for them. It's kind of tedious, but it is so important to get that right because it's your marketing tool, you know? So I got a couple templates I like to use, and I make sure that all of the main points of what makes you a good professional, we got to figure out a way to get it in there, even if it feels like it's something that comes so naturally to you that you think it's, why would I include it on there? I'm so good at it naturally. That's important. So we make sure to get all of that on there.
So, hang on resumes for a second. This
Yeah.
is going to be all kinds of great information for people watching this segment. So, generally speaking, so in my day job, I do have the opportunity to review resumes and hire different people for different things.
Mhm.
And in the past several years, I've seen it seems like a trend towards like resumes that are designed. So it's gone. It's not just like that white paper with the black text and bullets. There's actually a
Mhm.
design component to it. Is that a big trend right now? What's that like?
Yeah, it is a big trend. And my instinct is to say, like, resist the trend. With an asterisk, though, I want to say if you're in a highly creative field, like I have a client who is the director of creative project management. I can't remember what her exact title is, but we're going with a more designed resume because that is what the expected industry standard is. However, if you are in something that is a little bit more conservative, like my background is in healthcare, you do not want to have an overly designed resume, not just because it's more difficult for certain things to stand out, but because certain design features include like a headshot, that is a hard no-go. I will just tell you, unless you are working in TV or some sort of modeling field, do not include your headshot on a resume, no matter what the design says. In a lot of industries, it immediately can disqualify you.
During my show, I do like to talk about what things could be for people that are transitioning into a new career. So in this particular
Yeah.
instance, you might have people that they've been in their particular job for several years, 5, 10 maybe. And the last time they wrote the resume was, 5, 10 years ago. What are some big trends that have changed since then that maybe they should be on the lookout for when they first start redoing the resume?
Yeah. Well, for one, we do have the incredible, again, I'm going to put an asterisk on that, incredible tool of like a ChatGPT type of thing, or, that kind of, it can help you clarify your points on a resume. But I stress this strongly, do not have ChatGPT write your resume. It is not you. Use it as a tool. So that's something to get comfortable with, knowing how to use that to help clarify what it is you're good at and what you have done, not to write the whole thing because it's not your brain, man. It's a computer. So stay authentic with who you are and just find a better way to describe what you have done. Another trend is, certain things, certain technologies, it's the expectation that people have now. So on your skills section, which is something that I recommend everybody have on their resume, a skills section that shows, that clearly outlines the things that the programs that you use well, or things that you're an expert in. We don't need to put things like Microsoft Suite anymore, or things like that, because we all do it, right? We have to do this. But if it's more specialized, like Jira or Salesforce, absolutely include those. Don't take those kind of skills for granted. There's a lot of people out there who tell you they know how to do it and they don't. So if you really know how to do it, make sure you list that on there.
Okay, that's really good information. So when it comes to, I'll go back to ChatGPT for a second because I've
Yeah.
actually, over the past several weeks, I've spoken with a couple of different people, and ChatGPT has come up a number of times. So this is
Yeah.
interesting. Um, so when you say use it to I
Like,
think you said like summarize your points or something like that.
yeah.
So in an instance like that, would you take like a particular job that you've had in the past and take whatever section you have there, feed that into ChatGPT and say, can you summarize this? What kind of prompt would you use?
Yeah, yeah, that is, yeah. Can you summarize this? That's great, but then you have to put more, like using this word or don't include this word. Because, that's part of the problem with ChatGPT is that you can tell when it's been written by it because it will continuously use the same language over and over again. And it gets smarter, air quotes, but you have to be smarter than the machine. So give it the prompts of, please make this more refined, take this 4 to 5, make this a whatever. You give it like several sentences and say, please refine this to a concise 1 sentence, whatever description, but you have to still be involved in it. And it has nothing to do with me being afraid of it taking other people's jobs or anything. I think it's like we are the ones who program this thing. Humans are the ones who drive everything. So please keep your humanity involved in your resume.
I completely
Please.
agree with what you're saying. I was on a podcast several weeks ago. It actually just aired last week. But one of the questions they directed towards me was thoughts on skills that people would different skills that would be helpful as I get new jobs, new careers. And one of the things I talked about was ChatGPT. I said learning how to use that as a tool,
Yeah.
I think is going to be huge in the future. And this is a really good example, like using it as a tool to help you refine your resume and then leverage that. Still be authentic, but use that as a tool to help you to make words more concise or sentences more concise or something like that. That's good.
I think of it as like a thinking partner, but you still have to do the heavy lifting.
Going back, you said you work primarily with healthcare within the healthcare industry. Is that correct?
That is about, yeah, that's greater than 50% of my client work is healthcare executives, or a really big part is people transitioning from clinical healthcare, like the actual, nurses, doctors. I'm a registered dietitian by training. People who are transitioning from clinical, moving into more leadership and administrative side of things. And that was how my career got here. I transitioned I started in the clinical field, moved into different leadership and administrative side of things before I transitioned out entirely. So that's I would say is like what I feel most passionate about. That's kind of like healthcare is always going to be my first love. But I work with people from all industries. Largely, it is big bureaucratic industries. Like the
Okay.
larger and more bureaucratic the organization, the more I can help people kind of weave their way through it, because it's very similar to healthcare. People don't realize healthcare is one of the biggest industries in our country, and with the size of it and the amount of money that it makes, there's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of politics involved, and I can help people navigate through that.
How important is it for someone that's looking to hire a career coach? How important is it for that person to find someone that is more aligned with the field that they're in? So like healthcare or technology or finance or something like that. How important is it to locate a specific career coach in that industry?
Yeah. I guess that's a really good question, because I want to say it depends, but that doesn't feel like a great answer. But it really does depend on the amount of experience that the career coach has. You have there's I don't know the ins and outs of every industry, but I know how to parse out the most important information. And that really comes from a formal training, but also from years of experience of doing it. If you have the desire to stay within one very specific industry, I would say it is worthwhile trying to find a career coach who has a lot of experience working in that industry. I don't think it's 100% critical, but I mean, it's definitely going to make the process easier in the beginning, for sure.
Okay. And at what point does it make sense for someone to actually hire a career coach or an executive coach? At what point do they say, you know what, I need help here. I can't do this
Yeah.
on my own. Or when does that typically occur? When's a good point for that to
Yeah.
happen?
I would say people tend to wait a little bit too long. People tend to wait until they're like, I've had it up to here with these like negative comments on my resume, or getting turned down for jobs. But it tends to be when people have start to feel exhausted with doing it themselves. I would say do it before then. You can definitely transition more quickly when you and know somebody who can help you, because there's so much about job searching that is not just resumes. It's also navigating LinkedIn. LinkedIn is now an absolute requirement for any sort of professionalized field. You have to know how to use LinkedIn, how to optimize your LinkedIn profile, having a presence of any kind. And then also the networking on LinkedIn, and in-person and virtual networking is apps. It has never been more important than it is now. It is very, very important that you have the skills to network, and networking makes people very uncomfortable. So don't discount working with somebody who can help walk you through that process.
Okay. So speaking of having someone walk you through things,
Mhm.
how integrated is your work with the person when they're doing like the job hunting? Is this something
Yeah.
that it's like you give them pointers that's like, okay, go ahead and do it, or are you making connections for them as well? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, for me personally, I do work really closely with them. I introduce them to different recruiters I know online, or different people who are involved in the hiring process within certain industries that my client wants to get into, especially if they're looking to transition industries. But I work with my clients weekly. We meet once a week to make sure that they are, a week is a long time when you're either unemployed or hating your job. So we make sure to meet once a week to keep the ball rolling. And yeah, I do I'll check up on I look to see how active my clients are on LinkedIn and if they've updated their profile. I have my job alert set for them so that they have their job alert set, and my job alert feature on LinkedIn looks quite chaotic because I have all of my clients' job alerts on. And if I come across something that I think they may have missed, I'll send it to them. They'll send me things so that we know how to tweak the resume and especially the interview process. We do a lot of interview preparation. So the more information you have about an organization going into either just applying for the job or especially interviewing for the job, the better. So
Okay.
I work pretty closely with them. Yeah, I'd say that we're not letting things get by us.
Okay. Now, for you, what's a heavy workload for the number of clients that you have? Do you typically have, three dozen? What does it typically look like for
Uh,
you where it's like
yeah.
you have a full load?
Yeah, a full load is at one point I tried to have 15 and I felt like I wasn't able. I think around between 12 and 13 is the number where it is a full load and I can give enough attention to every client where I know that they're getting a lot of value from our time together. And I just see more success around that number. Anything over 15, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of I like my life a lot, so I don't want to be working, 15 hours a day. But I know some coaches, man, when you're first starting out, you'll take all that you can get. I am very fortunate to say I'm at a place in my business where I make sure that any clients I take, I know I can help them. If I feel like, man, I want to work with this person, but I don't know that I'm the best for them, I have a big connection of executive coaches and career coaches that I can refer them to.
When it comes to education, if someone wants to be a career coach, what do they
Mhm.
need to do? What's like a normal path for that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say the first thing is make sure you have experience working in some sort of setting of like some professionalized setting so you know how things work. You have to know the behind the scenes of an office or a hospital or a school or whatever it is field you're working in. You truly have to know the ins and outs behind that. There's a lot of things between the lines that are just inferred, or a lot of knowledge that is not necessarily written down. You have to know that. But I mean, for me personally, I have a somewhat probably unusual story of education. I finished my bachelor's degree in, it was a long time ago, 2003. And I worked in healthcare for close to 20 years. And at around 2018, I started my master's degree in management strategy and leadership. I finished that in 2020. I didn't get to walk across the stage, COVID, but that degree itself gave me really good insight into other professionals and other professions, because it was a graduate degree that had most of the people had been working, and they were all very qualified and accomplished in their own careers. So it was very much like a second degree, and after working in the field for a while. So I got to work really closely with people who had been like automotive executives for the past decade, or we had another person that was running their own PR agency, but was looking to move into helping other people start their businesses. So it was a really good, that was the unexpected benefit of getting that degree later in life. I thought, well, I just need a business degree because, right, everybody needs a business degree. That is not true. But if you're going to get one, um, I definitely recommend, if you want to be in the career coaching field, get one where you're going to have a lot of really good communication with other professionals who have achieved a lot in their careers.
Okay. That's good
And then I also
information.
did coach training. That's the other thing. Coach training through the Professional Association of Resume Writers and Career Coaches and through the College of Executive Coaching.
Okay, so let's hang on that for a second. So with that and all of your certifications, what does that typically look like? Is that like is that an optional piece? Is that something that, if you're looking to hire a career coach, you better check to make sure they have these certifications? What does
Yeah.
that look like from a what's the word I'm looking for?
For like an
What is
industry standard
Yeah, let's go with that.
perspective. Yeah, I mean, I think it goes, I really think there is also the answer of it depends because certifications, yes, I think that the benefit of those is that you know that they've had some formal training from people who have also had formal training, like that's pretty important. Um, but it's not necessarily required. So if you find a career coach or an executive coach you absolutely love and you're very much like you're vibing with them, you want to work with them, and you've seen their success with past clients, but they don't have the certification, that doesn't have to be a complete deal breaker. I recommend it. I think I loved working with the College of Executive Coaching. I actually think that was some training I did that it's been priceless. It was very pricey, but it was priceless in the value that it's given me. But more than anything, I would say look for a track record of success with previous clients. I have on my LinkedIn, if you go to my recommendation section, you can see real past clients that I've worked with who have provided recommendations. And what I like about that is you can click on them and you see they're real people. You see that they are real people who have real careers. And that it's not that the training is not as important. It's just that it's not the only thing.
Is this safe to assume that anyone that's going down the path of becoming a career coach, they're going to be an entrepreneur, they're going to work for themselves? Is that a safe assumption?
Yeah, most of the time, I actually don't think I know anybody who does this, who doesn't work for themselves. I'm sure they're out there. But I personally love it. I feel like I love running a business. I love the ins and outs of it. So if you really, really don't want that part of it, I would say it's going to be a lot more tricky
Okay.
because
And if
you
so,
still got to balance the books. You still have to, do lead generation and all of that.
okay, so let's hang on that for a second. So how do you typically get your clients? If someone is just starting out in this industry,
Yeah.
what's a good method for them to actually start to get clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. My first one was LinkedIn, but it turns out that it was a person that I knew in real life, and I didn't know that they were following me on LinkedIn. It was a person here in my town who I worked with. She was my very first client. I worked with her for free for 3 months because I was brand new and wanted to test the methods that I used. But LinkedIn for sure it's a great place. It's not the be all end all, but it's a great starting point. Ideally, referrals is the best source. Once you start working with people, they start to tell other people like, wow, I worked with this coach, Natalie. She really helped me get this great job. You should hit her up. And that's when you know it's working.
Okay.
That's the best. But starting out, do not overlook LinkedIn and also TikTok. I'm surprised myself, but I've gotten 2 new clients lately, both of them earlier this month from TikTok.
I never would have guessed that in a million years.
Me either. Me either. I didn't either. I had to update my form, the intake form, because TikTok wasn't an option of like, how did you hear about me? So I've added it now, but both of them said that. And it's just videos, just educational videos that I do. Is just like, hey, if you're writing a resume, like don't forget this thing. It's just little things that I put out there, not expecting it to have any return on my time. I just thought it was an easy thing for me to do. It's been kind of fun.
Talking about being an executive coach, how does that, so you said before it differs in that, you're working more with people that are part of is it C-suite? Is that the term, right?
Yeah, the
Okay.
C-suite or like the VP level. Mhm.
Yep. Okay, so how does your like the day to day with that clientele differ from like other like career coaching clientele, I guess?
Yeah, with them, it is more about using their network. So we will sit down when I'm working with an executive client, we will sit down and go through their like Rolodex, their virtual Rolodex of who do you know, who have you worked with in the past, who is a previous mentor you had, or somebody who has got your back. How can they help you? There's a really large connection, the very large network that they have. So that is a big part of it. Also, these clients tend to have either they have a big responsibility in their organization, and especially if they're still working and they're looking to leave, we're balancing those responsibilities of maintaining their level of professionalism at work and their level of influence and still being a great leader, because they generally have pretty large teams, while also slowly backing away and looking for something else. There's a lot more about, the politics of it and making sure that they still feel that they're able to perform at their high level in their current role, even though they're looking for a way out.
Typically, when you work with them, are you looking at a national or international level? I envision that working like locally might be a little challenging. What does that
Yeah.
typically look like?
Yeah, a lot of times at those levels, they're willing. My clients are usually the I don't love the term breadwinner, but whatever. Like they're the ones who make the money in the family, and so the family knows if they are making a big career change, it often does require a move. Not all of the time, but it does often require a move. So it makes the caliber of position that we're looking at much more important because it's a huge life change for the entire family, usually. Not all the time. There are still some positions that are remote. Remote executive positions do exist, but they often require a lot of travel. So there's also that.
So when it comes to the executive coaching, do you find that that particular career as an executive coach, is that less saturated than a career coach, or is it kind of starting to get blended? What does that typically look like right now?
I would say, yeah, that just a straight executive coach, it is less saturated. It does require, it's very difficult to just right out of the gate be like, I'm an executive coach, because you really have to show not just the that you have the years of experience, but also that you have the track record of helping people at a progressively higher level. So it's a little bit more, I would say, a little bit more specialized. And it just is naturally where I think some of us end up. It's just a natural progression for some people. Other people love the nitty-gritty details of strictly career coaching. I tend to be, I'm much more like, I love to be high level with my clients. Like we're way up here looking at, how things can play out. And that does happen to some extent in career coaching. Some people just are much better at, I think about it as like strategy versus execution. I love to help my clients strategize about what the next stage of their life is going to be, whether they stay in this current organization and get a promotion, because that also is something that I work with my clients on, or if we're going to completely change. When it comes to the execution piece, a lot of my clients are like, they have been in their career for so long that writing a resume themselves, like they don't need me to do it. They just need me to give them some pointers and they do it.
So we need to think back to your first client that was of the C-suite level, or was a
Yeah.
VP. How did you get that person? I'm assuming it was probably word of mouth, but what
Yep.
did that actually look like for you? How did you make that first jump?
So it was really interesting. She actually came from LinkedIn, but we had enough mutual connections that I would just, because I post on there, I post little educational things. I would just show up on her feed constantly, apparently. I was like, oh gosh, sorry for saturating you, but she loved it. And she was at this stage where she was not sure if she wanted to stay within her organization. It was like I'm not going to say the organization's name, but it's a Fortune 50 telecommunications company. So very, very big, and she's very high up in it. And she was struggling with whether she wanted to stay in this organization and continue to rise, or if she wanted to move to a completely different industry. And in the end, it's something really funny happened. She stayed in this and moved up the ranks, and she's still there. It's wonderful. She also started her own consulting business. So she kind of did totally different things, but I helped her. A big thing that we did was work with time management, work-life balance, or work-life integration, and making sure that she was showing up as the leader that she needed to be, whether she was leaving or not. And that made her see, if I manage my time right, like I can do a lot. So she started her own business and is still an executive. So that's pretty fun.
Now, Natalie, whenever I'm speaking with someone on Time We Discuss, I like to give the person I'm speaking with an opportunity to talk about a cause they believe in, a project they're working on, their business. So if there's something you'd like to talk about, I'd like to give you the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, so it's actually going to be like very hyper local. So if you're not in the Asheville area, I highly recommend you come and visit it. But I'm in Asheville, North Carolina, and I'm the co-founder and co-host of a women's speaking and networking experience event. We do them every other month. It's called Empowerment Collective. And it's really, the point of it is to give women who have dynamic histories of either their career, entrepreneurship, or just their life. They have really interesting stories. We want to give them a platform to share it in a way that's kind of similar to this. It's two people on stage together, and I'm the host. I'm not sitting off to the side, and they're kind of interviewing each other. And it creates this really fun, intimate experience that allows people to get their ideas out in ways that is kind of hard when you're sitting there trying to think of it yourself. And so it's, we do them every other month. It's just a really fun event. And I am passionate about that. And I'm also passionate about helping other women start these events in their hometown if they want to do it. So I would hit anybody who has an interest in starting an experience like this that allows people to get together in kind of a really fun, elevated way. I would love to walk you through that process because it has added so much joy to my life and a lot of just like fun flavor to the work that I do.
That sounds fantastic. I'll make sure I get all kinds of links from you. I'll put them
Yeah.
in the show notes, the description, all that good stuff. And I love the stuff that happens at a very local level. I mean, I've, you're obviously talking about this. I had a photographer talk about Pennsylvania, a magician talk about New Jersey.
I
The
love
woman I
it.
spoke with earlier last week, she runs a nonprofit, and I'm going to get this wrong probably. I can't remember if it's in Tennessee or Alabama. I can't remember where it might even be a different southern state. I don't remember.
Somewhere down there.
Yeah, so it's great, you eventually going to hit like different people in different places.
Mhm.
So it's always good, the global stuff as well as the local stuff. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Most of my clients are not local. Most of my clients are on the East Coast or the West Coast. And so I don't get to do a ton of work locally. So I created my own, and man, it's so much fun.
Do you make them available live after or recorded after the fact? Do you ever record those?
Yep. Yeah. After the
Awesome.
fact. Yeah, you got to go to the live one to get the goodie bag, though. We give a fun little goodie bag away, but then yes, you can watch them afterwards.
All right. All right. So I'll make sure to get all that information again from you. That'll be fantastic. Natalie, it's been awesome having you on Time We Discuss, and we learned what it's like to be a career coach and an executive coach.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Thanks for popping in the studio. My name is Dan, and this is Time We Discuss. I really enjoyed speaking with Natalie today, and I hope you enjoyed the time too. Make sure to check the links in the description to learn more. If there's a profession they want me to cover, add a comment, and I'll find that person for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. That'll do it. See you next time on Time We Discuss.